the Department of Small Business Development.
Okay, our next speaker is the one and only, the Honorable Minister of Small Business Development, Ms. Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams.
Thank you so much, Program Director. The only part that you forgot is to say people remain seated. This is one of the protocols I really do not enjoy, of people standing up, because now you're going to make me fall. Because I'm nervous when you're standing up that I must reach the mic, and I don't like that. Good evening to you all. I'm appreciative of the work that has been done. Earlier, those that joined us during the day, we were emphasizing the need for partnerships. We spoke of the need to get coordinated and work towards integration of the support that we provide. And this that you saw here really gives expression to that. The different stakeholders, our beautiful panelists, that clearly articulated the positions from where they stand. But what I liked more is when most of you offered solutions and proposals to government. It wasn't a complaining session. Okay, others know how I feel about those sessions, as much as I do understand that at times people must express themselves. But in the world of hustlers, there's no time to complain. I always say a problem presents an opportunity to entrepreneurs. I listened to both the secretary and Mohau when they were saying, you are not involving disabled, you are doing this and that. I'm like, come on, brother, that's your opportunity. Why don't you come with a solution and make a proposal to this government and the other stakeholders that are talking here to say, we have seen that you're not entirely driving the inclusive economic growth because you have excluded a particular sector of the community, and therefore this is the solution that we're helping you with. And you're identifying a niche market for yourself instead of getting them to go and get other people to do it for you. I come from another NGO. That NGO tells us that you may think we're fighting when we engage if you don't understand our game. But it is true that radical engagement, that we're able to come up with policies that benefit many people, including those that spend their days in taverns. I agree there are those that spend much time trying to build a country, trying to do this and that, then they all rubbish. And there are those ones that are relaxed. Yeah, he takes you to, yeah. And then they go into whatever. But this is the responsibility of those that have accepted the call to provide leadership. But unfortunately, most of us tend to believe that for us to provide leadership, we should be elected. And today has proven that how wrong that thinking is, because the solutions that you proposed here, whilst you're not elected, are solutions that are addressing the challenges that you are faced with, which is why that NGO that I come from emphasizes the need for us to work together. All the time, together we can do more, moving South Africa forward, building this in unity and diversity, and all the sloganeering that we don't pay attention to when we do our day-to-day work. And as I said, the ones that were seated here are beneficiaries of these policies, with all the mistakes that we have as the state. But we're also proud to say there are some achievements which we need to build on. We are happy also, and Nafcock, that you created jobs for us. through the establishment of the Small Business Development Department. Hey, this gentleman wouldn't be sitting here. But what value does that add? How do you continue to monitor that those objectives that you had when you called for the establishment of the department are realized without you taking over, but making sure that everybody in the ecosystem understands the vision? Because another crisis that we get to be faced with is when a vision is understood by few, whilst expected to be implemented or realized by all. I always say, David, when I engage with officials, I like a situation wherein a cleaner is able to identify his or her role. What is my role in realizing that vision? When I was an ordinary parliamentarian, when we did oversight, I would come and ask, okay, what position do you hold? What do you do? And one would explain whatever that she does. And I'm like, what's the vision and the mission of this organization? And they'll be stuck. To an extent that I became unpopular to CEOs. And I was trying to say, it can be correct that a vision is understood only by CEOs or senior management. The organization belongs to all. It cuts across those that are poor, those that are rich, those that are learned, the illiterate, including those that are very intelligent and dumb. All of those are critical stakeholders, which means when you develop your product, it should be a product that is able to find expression, that we make sure that our products do not only become relevant to the market, but they become relevant here at home with the challenges that we face. And that can be realized when we all understand what needs to be done. Therefore, the engagements that were presented here give me hope to say, if we stay together, if we continue to communicate, in a language that we all understand, we're bound to do that we ought to do, creating jobs for South Africans and helping the country grow its economy. At the center of it is the transformation of the economy that we have. It is true, I think that was BMF that raised the issue of having to look at the legacy legislations. You are correct, you are in office. We are administering those acts. I'm sure you saw when we were talking about, what was it? Was it the land issue? Wherein we were using some old legislation, just like if you read the one that we have, the Principal Act, or the Small Business Act. And these are the things that we're saying, because when we came into governance and being able to reach out and learn from others, that does not mean we're dumb. We're not dumb. That's why we call for everyone to learn, relearn, and unlearn certain things. If we are to be productive, it can be, I have 20 years of experience. Of what? What impact have you made when you brag about 20 years of experience? You mean that's of the analog space? Whilst we're in the digital era, what value does it add? As we sit here and talk about the challenges and the opportunities, and talk about the work that we're doing, if we were to stay under level 5 lockdown of COVID, would we have these businesses? Are we preparing our mindset for that eventuality? Because all the plans that we have made prior, including the manifestos that we committed to the electorate, we never foresaw what COVID will do to our economy and to our people. But now that God has exposed us to that reality, to say there's a need to change how we do things, are we gearing towards that change? lockdown. How are we consumers? Just like they used to have mines, and I was asking, how many of you had access to the mining rights? Or are they the game? That's what they did. So now, if you're closing them out, therefore they're going to do what they know. Being appreciative of the legacy that has been built by those that came before us. Use tactics that were relevant then. That's why you see malls closing today. Because those strategies, in ensuring that from the planning and economic development side, you make sure that if we're going to have a mall in a particular area to supply ShopRite, Spar, and Mangman, without you fighting with established businesses, because again, we're not going to win that. 70% of the economy resides in the hands of the private sector. Only 30% that government is in control of. Therefore, we have to be smart here. Being smart means that we don't have to say everything publicly. Being smart means we've got to plan accordingly. Plan accordingly, bit by bit. You have tertiary institutions that are surrounding yourselves, both, if I'm talking about this area, Mangawong, whether you're talking about, usually Buza, there's a technical college, there's no university. But again, how do you focus on building skills that must help grow the economy, starting with the bursaries that you offer, be it at a local municipality level or a provincial level? How are they aligned to your LED strategy? Because there's a tendency of just providing bursary even for your employees without looking at the skills gap that we have and looking at what we want to achieve as the province, and therefore say, because we want to make sure that we can run efficient institutions, that meritocracy that we're talking about. Hey, ziphelelwe ndangu ndandise exile. Wabona now we come from exile. Doesn't work anymore. Just like it doesn't work to just be chanting slogans and rhetoric when people are hungry. Doesn't work. It therefore requires administrators that have a balanced understanding of the ideology, not only of the governing party, but that unites the people. And in this context right now, everybody agrees that jobs have to be created. Everybody agrees that small businesses have to be supported. Why don't we ride the wave and therefore call upon all those that can come and help us? And engagements like these, this partnership dialogue that we had today, present us with that opportunity. Today, we didn't have the banking sector as we talk of the services that they are offering, because it's important that the banking sector, actually the entire finance sector, has to understand why it's important for them to be involved in initiatives like this. Why it's important for them to understand the realities that South Africans are faced with. We don't want a repeat of the July 16, right? We didn't see it in Free State. We saw it in KZN. Will do, because it really destroyed the economy. Unfortunately, our economy is concentrated on those two provinces, KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. Whether you talk about the support that we provide in terms of the small businesses, 52% is from Gauteng alone. The rest of the country gets to share 48%. This explains why, especially rural provinces, remain poor like this. Because there isn't a deliberate effort to build capabilities of the SMMEs in our areas. We're happy to say we want a grade 7 company, those IDB English of yours. We want a grade 7. That time, your SMMEs, we're giving them grade 1 level jobs. How are they going to jump to grade 7? You keep on giving work to Gauteng and other people. and you think things are going to change. Who's going to wake up and change those things? How is it going to work? Whilst we understand that we may not have all the capabilities currently, but how are we building that capability? Because it is your responsibility to empower people in your area. Or you think kuzoba nemana and some savior and help you, and they must go and vote for you willingly. They must go and pay you rates with what? If you don't think they deserve to get what you have as the budget in this metro. If you think the electorate of this area has voted you into power to squabble, when do you think you're going to take development to these people? How do you plan to secure your position if you're busy squabbling? Because you're going to lose it all. The past elections were a wake-up call, not only to the governing party, unfortunately. They were a wake-up call to all political parties, all. Because even those that have not surpassed the governing party in terms of numbers, others have not dropped, yes, but they're still keeping there. They're not growing. Whilst people are angry at the governing party, but we don't see much growth in others too. That tells you that people are tired of stories. People are tired of rhetoric. And these SMMEs must help buy T-shirts for us when we campaign, and they must fund the volunteers. And we're giving them 30%. Whilst the policy says 30%, but there's nothing stopping a municipality to give 70% of the budget to locals. It's to say at least 30% should be made. That applies mainly on big businesses internationally to say you can't come all the way from wherever you come from and therefore utilize everything in the value chain without investing in the local. So when we say 30% local procurement, it doesn't mean you must stop there. You can't stop there. You really cannot afford to if you know what you're doing. So we've got to be deliberate on those joint ventures to say we're going to give you this business because right now we have failed to build capability of our own SMMEs, and we recognize that for these are the conditions. And on your subcontracting of these SMMEs, these are the components that we want to subcontract on, knowing that you have invested in skills development of those areas to your SMMEs. And of course, you then come to us, Abo FDC, Abo SIFA, Labo SIDA. They must stop telling stories. We want impact now, all right? We're tired of, hey, the DGA, and we're going to deal with red tape reduction, here amending this policy. We want the socio-economic impact of a policy. We can't be saying we've met targets because we presented papers to cabinet and parliament, DM, right? What change have those brought? That's what's important. What change has the policy or the legislation brought into the livelihoods of the small businesses that must translate to the transformation and the growth of the economy whilst addressing unemployment? If we are sitting where we are at, it tells you that we're not doing well, which is why we need others to join hands. As I said, that's a country commitment. That's not the responsibility solely of the Department of Small Business Development. Earlier on, I made reference to what the president announced, and it got people, you know, this man does not want to take decisions. He's so scared of his ministers. Why doesn't he release them? Because he doesn't have confidence in them. Learned people are saying those things. He has appointed the Rajab, he doesn't have confidence. Did you really think we're going to go and deal with water rights issues, with electricity issues, with the bylaws issues that are raised here, and all the other red tape measures that are frustrating both small and big businesses, that you think now President does not have confidence when he says we are elevating this matter because it requires the attention of the highest office. in the land. And you think that is being wrong, it's him passing a motion of no confidence. Whilst he can wake up and reshuffle, nobody's going to ask him. I can reserve at his pleasure. Now you think he's going to be scared to say, I'm displeased with you, go home. It talks to the understanding or lack of that we have. And I always say, it is good that we get to communicate. But at all times, there are critical things in communication that you ought to strive for when you're communicating. Getting the message right, inspiring, and building confidence. Educate, entertain, and that's very important, and inform. That's what communication is about. And for us as the department that's responsible for the coordination of this work, if we are missing any of those components, we are going to fail. That's why we are saying we are opening up space. You know, when the Chinese said, we're opening up markets now, and they went and stole everybody's idea. Because you need to understand the system for you to bear it. But now we don't want to steal. We want to leverage on the expertise that our partners have so that we can be able to deliver on the people's expectations and therefore grow the economy. We are looking forward to working with yourselves as our partners. Mkhulu Muslim Sebenza, I did say, we ought to make sure that, as others are saying, I had a young person, the minister must commit. Minister, you must commit here that you're going to give us containers when you come back in 6 months. I was like, yeah. We're talking governance and compliance, and you think you come with that? Yeah. But of course, when you're young, those things happen, but you learn with time. And these are the things that have put people not on the Zondo Commission, but in some places that we don't want to go to. That's why we're cautious. But it becomes our responsibility to educate people of the processes that ought to be followed for certain things to be achieved. Earlier on, we had engagements with the DM of Employment and Labor, and we were talking about the same thing when we're saying we are considering providing infrastructure support to small businesses, and the issue of containers arose. And we are saying between ourselves, them as DELL and Department of Higher Education and Science and Innovation, we can do that at a reasonable cost, because Minister Nzimande has lots of artisans that require experience for them to do whatever and get their certificates. All we can do is to partner with the industries and get somebody to mentor them as they're doing that work. And of course, we have the Department of Employment and Labor that can come on board and provide the stipends. And we come and offer the business development solution and the equipment if they need it through CIFA and other people. When we collaborate, when we are coordinated, we're able to collaborate for effective execution, not just rhetoric. That is why we said there's a need for us to make sure that there's alignment from local to national and to the private sector, so that we get to understand as government what are the investment plans of the investors that have an interest in the province. And therefore, how do we create an enabling environment for them to help us achieve our domestic targets whilst they're making more money, but we must also do and better and get what we ought to get out of those. That does not happen, Golala Uvuk. It happens because of continuous engagement, platforms like the different lobbying that you do running around. We can't even partner and say, certainly we're going to partner with NAFCOC to deliver this. We're going to partner with BMF and do this and that, because you're busy fighting for lobbying positions. The political freedom. All we have to do is to build on that and deliver the economic freedom to our people. And no T-shirt or sloganeering will deliver economic freedom. But the change in mindset and understanding who is the enemy and therefore what strategy and tactics should be applied for us to defeat the enemy. Spaza shops, all the fancy clothing we wear, and all these things that we get in the cars that we drive. We've got to identify our own niche. You know, my heart bleeds every time I look at a Mercedes-Benz C-Class that comes from my home province. And there isn't a single thing Eastern Cape about it. Ngicela ne chair covers, you know, the seats, the covers of the seats. Whilst we eat lots of meat, you know, most people of Eastern Cape eat lots of meat, they have lots of cows. But trust me, their hides are not good enough to supply Mercedes-Benz and Toyota. And this talks to the mentality and the thinking of those that are responsible for the development of the strategies. Whilst we're excited about investment that are coming, but what is it that is in for us? We ought to ask ourselves that question. In my office, they always laugh when I'm invited to go and speak. You know, people like having ministers for their events. Minister, come and address. I'm like, oh, okay, who are they? And I check, what can I get from them? There's nothing for my hand. I get. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I can leverage on their enterprise development program. When I was in communications, everybody knew, if I'm going to come and speak, you're going to commit to connecting schools, provide them with laptop or tablets or whatever. Not coming for Mahal. And you're not going to give my kids laptops because I have a contract with Vodacom, so I'm going to buy them. But you're going to buy for the communities. And this is what we ought to do. Because people are making money, but do we guide their CSIs? Or we get happy, they buy soccer kits and they live. Hit and run. Because we don't have clear strategies. It all goes back to the clear strategies. And unfortunately for political parties, that one does not entirely depend on one party. If you go to a council, it's a multi-party council, and all parties are represented in the different committees. Same applies to parliament. And then we go to government, we never ask for your membership card. Which party do you belong to? You just look for, what is that you look for, DG? Experience in public service, 15 years. Experience in public service. And we're complaining about the public service that has not transformed the economy now. But we still want people with 15 years, right, yeah? We still want people with 20 years experience, 15 years experience in enterprise development. And the economy has not grown. Since then, the interventions that we're making have not been effective. And we think things are going to change. Of course, things can change when we have a human capital that understands that it has to unlearn certain things, be willing to learn new things, upskill ourselves so that we remain relevant. That's why I asked if we were to be locked in level 5, would these businesses, including those ones that are permanently employed, will they survive in the work that they do? Because it's all about understanding where we are and therefore what are the drivers of that particular era. We ought to change how we do things. The working on silence and competition amongst SMMEs is not taking us anywhere. You've got to find ways of collaborating with each other. A municipality will issue so many tenders. I heard people, they're busy with tenders here. You try to bring them to say, guys, you know we're a department responsible for economic freedom, entrepreneurship, real wealth. I agree we give you money to establish your portfolio. But people want the easy way, the tenders. By that time, they build roads. They're not even civil engineers. They don't even know how to count the bill of quantities and all those things. And then they must sign a contract with an LLB person, not a commercial lawyer, because that's what is available. The importance of the skills in the businesses that we are running becomes very critical. Gone are the days where Hi, Chini women as CFOs by nature. You go home, you see they know how they administer their husbands' monies. We've seen homes, shame not growing also with those women there and children struggling. It's the reality that we face with. So you can't think that you're gonna sleep and wake up with capacity just like men think they have. It is something that has to not only be acquired, but that you get to learn, which is why we should be agile enough to be appreciative of new innovations. Whilst we build from the past what has been there in order to build the future, but we shouldn't think that the solutions of the 19th century will be relevant in the 21st century. That's why I don't get threatened by people who did things 20 years back, and I'm like, that's why you're still here. You are the problem because you know it all, and there's no space for growth. Whilst we're saying that people think that when we raise those things, we're referring to old people. Hey, young people don't want to learn themselves. Because they think because they are young, they know it all. Whilst they don't know where we come from and why we had to take certain decisions to be here, and why it's important not to take that route again to build the future that we're talking about. So that generational mix program of the NGO I come from becomes very critical in terms of sharing knowledge, not just bringing age and IDs because your ID starts with 5, mine starts with 7 or 8. That does not add any value. Doesn't make you a great leader because you are young. It doesn't. But as a young person, you ought to be given an opportunity to make mistakes so that you can improve. It becomes the problem that now you're going to want 20 years experience and then you don't want to give the young ones an opportunity to make mistakes and show you how it can be done. You know the nice thing about getting people straight from school? Fresh. They don't know the laws. I heard somebody who was saying there's 33, 300 and whatever. You need exactly those ones that must disrupt the status quo. Why do you want them to know all of those stupid things that have not taken us anywhere? You need them to make the mistakes, challenge the status quo if they are to transform the system that we're talking about. And only then people will realize, hey, nangona man, we're uncomfortable, but this thing is working. Only then. That's how developed countries are doing it. That's why they invest more on research and innovation every day. Whilst they're providing this solution, they're working on another one before it takes off. What is possible? But Tina, we have not seen it, therefore it doesn't work. I feel you. If we don't know it, you go to SIFA, you apply for whatever. They're like, we've never heard of this, and then they put your business plan there. They continue their life. I get it, they want the poultry projects. They want the Chisanyang. And those are very important because those are what deal with the poverty that we have. Because we need those survivalist businesses in order to address unemployment and poverty. But hey, we need to grow the economy to deal with the realities that we're faced with. Which is why we shouldn't be scared in providing a separate fund for the renewable energies. Because we can't continue to be consumers. We've got to have that mindset. It's risky, TG. No bit. Hey, Minister, hey, these ones are high risk. Therefore, we can't put more money. You like being comfortable. You want the easy ones, Shisanyama, because you know people are going to buy food and whatever. You've got to invest where it's risky so that you can see your returns. But give yourself enough time to track progress. The digital infrastructure, as I always say, is another opportunity that you as SMME is seated here, you should be looking at. You'd be complaining, hey, data, what do you say? That English that you put? Data must fall. I don't know where did you get that thing from also. Because what must fall are the data costs. You can't say data must fall. How are you going to communicate? But nevertheless, we go with the flow. You don't laugh. There are those ones that each one teach one. So please don't bring that here. So as we say those that are a problem in terms of saying we cannot afford the cost to communicate because it's too expensive, what are you doing to address that? What are you doing to challenge the status quo? This country that has, okay, others have licenses too, so I shouldn't say two mobile operators, right? Because there's SMME. Their licensee. But we are seeing the weaknesses. But at the same time, as I said, in the weakness, there's an opportunity. Every child, I'm sure, where you are seated, they're stealing your phone to hotspot because they want access to connectivity. What are we doing as small businesses of Free State that must ensure that every household has access to Wi-Fi? You go to these ones to fund you, that FDC that is doing whatever they, and these ones of ours, of course, to say, here we are. We would like to build this infrastructure because our people do not have access to connectivity. And we do want to provide connectivity at a cheaper rate. And it's doable. That's why in other areas you find young boys in the townships offering all this wireless connectivity at ridiculous cheaper prices. They've identified the niche. That's why I'm saying we need to change the mentality of thinking we can all be entrepreneurs that belong to tenders and the catering, and building RTP houses. There's an economy beyond those. There is an economy. That's why we are saying ours is to help create an enabling environment for you to be able to expand as much as you want to be. And we emphasize that you don't have to be big to be the best. You can be tiny like this. If you look at the companies that are milking it, even during the COVID period, who are they? Do they have offices? Where are their offices? Labo, Google, Labo, Amazon. Where do they stay? They don't pay ridiculous rental prices in offices in your upmarket areas. They reside in your pockets, in your cell phones, and that's where they store information. They just have their engineers working in the tiny laptops, wherever they are at. While too busy investing in building offices, then COVID is going to come and say, stay at home. Rethinking how we do business in order to make sure that we remain relevant, but most importantly, investing in the new economies, the renewable energy, the digital infrastructure. Those are the critical one, or what you call the green economy. Part of it is that waste management that people are not paying attention to. There's money in that. What are we doing to make sure that, yes, we have this that we've been doing traditionally, but we do realize that there's an opportunity here, and therefore we collaborate and work together to say, how do we make sure that we can do like R&R does? You know, people can hate white monopoly capital, Then you look at the artists, they are wearing the watches from some people. They sleep in hotels, they eat the food from some people that they say they hate. Because we have not analyzed the environment properly to say, if we are saying you're an enemy, what is it that we need to do to counter? And remember, I said, you cannot afford to have big businesses your enemies. You can't. You're going to destroy the economy of this country. And that we can't afford. We've got to learn to coexist, but in them making big profits, we've got to identify our niche in the value chain. This is why, as the department, we've made a submission to the Department of National Treasury on products that should be procured specifically from SMMEs. Somebody was making example, got the Chinese and the steel industry. And this steel is from here. You know, when you look at them fighting the East and the West, everything they're fighting about, it comes from Africa, and we have it here at home. Everybody's talking about how the fourth industrial revolution is going to help grow the economy, but they don't tell you how. They're not looking at the how. They're just looking at research that does not detail by Accenture and others. But to say we have minerals here in this country, the rare earth deposits, how many are found in the Free State? What are we doing to make sure that we protect that environment to say, in our own LAD strategy, we recognize that we have these mining rights, therefore we engage, the minerals that we have, we engage the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy to say, in your licensing, make sure 60% or whatever percent is reserved for locals. And then we go and say, Cedar, Mang, and others that are responsible for providing support, they do that, working with tertiary institutions. Don't forget that. That's why I spoke of the importance of the skills. And all those, ladies and gentlemen, are possible when we get out of the comfort zone, when we stop being entitled. You know that entitlement that you're not doing this for us, do this and that. Entrepreneurs don't speak like that. Entrepreneurs present a problem and a solution because they know a problem presents an opportunity for them to say, how do we help you solve your problem? You see, Minister Kimang MEC Education. Date, yes. You know, Date, we've seen that when we were doing the school visits or we're sending our children to school, they spent 2 weeks without school textbooks. And therefore, we've came together as the taxi people around or the people with bakkies to say we're going to help you deliver if that's the problem. Just incentivize us. We don't want the ridiculous money that entrepreneurs want. Oh, Nkosiyam. They inflate prices like nobody's business. And this is another challenge that we're facing. When people have to procure from small businesses, body layer months, that you want to sell at 30 rands. And you think people are going to continue buying from you because you're milking the state and you're making everyone run away from you. How do we make sure that our pricing is pricing that inspires confidence to say we can procure as many as possible? Because if your prices are ridiculous, it means we can't be able to buy more, just like those schools that you build at 150 million, the next thing, after 3 years, they fall apart. And these are the small businesses that are doing those. That is why we said our focus this term is on ensuring that we provide capability to small businesses whilst we're looking at access to funding. Because it is correct, we can provide funding, but without proper building of capabilities and post-investment support, we'll be wasting money, and unfortunately, we do not have time to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to say thank you all for being here, and we are looking forward to next engagements. And of course, the ANC government loves you so much. Good night.